The most overlooked feature on fish finders isn't the latest and greatest technology. It's actually been around for thousands of years. And I guarantee learning how to read a topography map will exponentially increase how many fish you catch each and every trip that you go on, as it's been the primary reason that I've caught hundreds, if not thousands of more fish in the last several years. In college, I bought topography maps or lake maps just so I could navigate around the lake and see kind of, where I was at on the lake. But I never really used them to their full potential. And this is probably why I was a terrible tournament angler. I just didn't know the critical information that I needed to know. So years later, while on a lake trout fishing guided trip with my father-in-law, the guides told us that they were taking us to a spot. And by the looks of it, we were just out in the middle of the lake, basically in the middle of nowhere. We could barely see the shore because we were on Lake Huron. And so to the eye, it just looked like we were out in open water. However, they started showing me on the map that there was a little reef out there. And as soon as we hit that area, we started getting bites and catching fish and quickly had our limit. So I brought that knowledge back to Oklahoma, used it on my fish finder, and sure enough, I started finding spots that I'd been overlooking for years. And the secret was those depth changes. Now, depth change can mean a whole lot, whether it's a hump, a saddle, a ridge, a ledge, a river channel, a creek channel, a point. And if I'm forgetting anything else that you might call a depth change, let me know in the comments. You see, all these had been staring me in the face literally for years as I stared at my topography map on the lake. But I chose to overlook them or just ignorantly didn't know what to look for, and it cost me fish because I just went and did what I always did, fished along the bank. But now I find fish and catch fish a lot faster because I've learned how to read a topography map better. I'm no expert at it, I'm still learning tips. And the first thing that I do with my map is before I ever get on the water, I start here at home. So let me show you what I'm looking for. All right, as you can see, I don't have the latest and greatest equipment. This is an old Garmin Echo map. I've had it for a couple of years, but it does the trick. However, it might be hard to see on the camera simply because I don't have screen recording, but this is my local lake, Ulaga Lake. I've fished it forever, and I actually found a spot. Let me make sure I'm in the right spot. I actually found a spot that I didn't know was here until I looked at these maps. And so we'll come here out to the middle of the lake. This is literally the middle of the lake. The river channel runs right through here. You can kind of see that. Yeah, you can see it on the screen. This is the river channel, but this is a big hump out there that you wouldn't know was there without looking at a map, unless you happen to drive over it with your depth finder, because it goes from about 20 foot all the way up. I would say 5 foot's a little shallow. I've never found it to be 5 foot deep. Maybe it is in one spot, but usually it's about 10 foot. It comes up from 20, 25 feet to 10, 15 feet, somewhere around there. But this spot is killer because you've got the river channel right here, and then you've got this hump. All the fish use this river channel to migrate around the lake. I've caught catfish here. I've caught sand bass here. Haven't caught any bass here. I'm not a good offshore bass angler, but I know they're there simply because of these features. So that's the benefit of doing this. Now, how the heck do we actually do this? The first thing I do is I start at the most obvious places. Some of the best places to fish typically aren't the middle of the lake. Now, in summertime like it is right now, it probably is the middle of the lake is a really good place to go. But your typical places to go are like creek mouths. You've got these points that come out here on the lake, and then anything else that just catches your eye immediately. So like these little islands, I know, however, the problem with these little islands over here, I know, is that it's super shallow. And you can see on the map here, it's 5 foot deep, and it really is about 5 foot deep there. But you can quickly see these areas and zoom in and check, okay, well that looks like a good area. Oh no, it's only 5 foot deep. I probably shouldn't start there. It would be better to start on this bridge. Oh, wow, yeah, the river channel runs right through it. It's 2 points coming together. There's 20 foot on each side of it. I mean, it looks like a great spot, and it is a great spot. Lots of people go fishing there. Lots of people catch a bunch of fish there. So I look for the most obvious areas, and this isn't because I'm gonna start fishing here. That's actually because I'm looking for a backup plan. And so I know that I can plug, hey, that area right there, I know I need a plan B, a plan C, whatever. I'm gonna mark that and say that's plan B. And so I know that, hey, I've got plan B done. And I go through my list, and then I look for the areas that other anglers will overlook. So if they don't have a map and they don't understand that, hey, this is a really good spot. So I know that this hump is super easy to drive right past because it literally looks like the lake. There's nothing there to signify, hey, there's a hump here. So other anglers will drive past that unless they know about it already or they happen to stumble across it. Same thing with this creek channel right here. You know, the main river channel they might know about, but they don't realize that, hey, this creek arm coming out of here, there's still a creek channel there, and I've caught a lot of fish off of this creek channel too, simply because other anglers are out here fishing along the shore at stuff that they can actually see. There's another hump right out here that I've never fished, and it's not much of a hump, but it is enough that some of these isolated humps will hold a few fish, and other anglers will just drive right by them. Because even though these aren't all that drastic, a subtle change of a foot or two is enough to hold fish there, especially if there's a rock or a log that happened to be sunk through there. So it's always best just to mark that, go check it out. So how the heck do we actually read these topography maps? This is the key that I've known how to read it forever, but I never combined it with fishing to understand that, hey, fish hang in these areas. You know, I'm like, it's a giant lake, where the heck are the fish actually gonna be? Well, maybe they're on the shore, and that's not always the case. So I didn't catch a lot of fish until I put this together. So you notice that these lines are pretty far apart. They're labeled 23, so 23 foot to 20 foot. So there's a 3 foot difference in change in elevation in between these lines. And so sure, that sounds like it should be enough, but how far they are spaced apart, that's pretty flat, to be honest. All this is also 23 feet, most of it, whereas it drops, these are actually holes, not humps, and it drops to 26 feet, and 26 feet around here too. So there is actually a dip and a drop, and the fish will hang in there. But if you didn't know what you were reading and you didn't understand that this is a giant flat and these are the holes that you should be fishing around, you might spend most of your time fishing here where the fish just simply aren't. And then we move over to right here. We go from this giant flat, 23 feet deep, to instantly 43 feet. And you noticed how close all these lines are together compared to that giant flat that we were just looking at. I mean, they're touching in places just because it's just a straight cliff down from 20 to 40 feet. We'll zoom in even more, and you can really see that these are still really close, even though we are just looking at the river channel at this point. I mean, we're looking at a 20, 30, 40 foot section of the lake wide, and they're that close together. So we know that that is a super steep ledge, is what I would call it, or the river channel. And so these are the areas that I would start fishing depending on the time of year. Obviously, it's at certain times of the year, it's better just to be super shallow and not worry about the depth changes as much. But most of the time, in the summertime, in the wintertime even, these depth changes are where you're gonna wanna fish, no matter the species. I'm gonna begin at these overlooked areas simply because, number one, they don't get as much pressure. Number two, there's still likely fish there. People just don't know what to look for, and so they drive right by it. So you're not racing other guys to the spot. And a lot of these fish likely haven't seen a lure in a long time or haven't seen bait, so you're more likely to catch them. And then I like to fall back to the little more pressured areas. That way I know, okay, I'm probably gonna have to change up my presentation. They've seen a crankbait for the last 8 months out of the year. I need to be throwing something different. Or they've seen this jig, I need to be throwing something a little differently in these more commonly fished areas. But that's the basics of reading a topography map to find more fish. It's really as simple as finding the depth changes. And when you can find the trifecta of a channel swing, which is this little bend in the river here, and then you've got a big flat off of this side, you've got deep changes, this is a place that I would definitely start because it's not obvious to the naked eye, and you get a shallow flat up against the bank pretty quickly. And then you've also got a deeper flat out here to the side. So you can fish a lot of different cover. You can fish a lot of different depths in a very short amount of time to figure out where the fish are at and what they're keying in on. So that would be the place that I would start. And then I'd work my way back to more obvious areas. It's really as simple as that to start finding more fish and catching more fish by using your fish finder. Now granted, you do need a decent quality fish finder, and a really good mapping system. Once you have those two, you can catch any species of fish that you're targeting simply by understanding the depth changes. And as you fish more, you'll begin to understand that, hey, fish are typically in this depth range, or they're holding to this kind of structure, or this drastic of a change this time of year. So that's where I need to start. But once again, it all starts with a quality fish finder. And if you don't have a quality fish finder with good mapping, you can check out the playlist down below me where I've reviewed several of the top fish finders by various brands so you can find the perfect one for you. I can't wait to see you in the next video.